CQRS. What is this monster? Now, CQRS stands for Command Query Responsibility Segregation. So command is to dictate something happens. To query is to inquire. Responsibility is who is supposed to do what. And segregation is just separating. So what we're doing is we're just getting our commands and our queries, and we're just splitting them into two. So in a general normal application, which is CRUD operations, it's easy for you to manage those operations. But eventually applications are going to get complex. And the bigger they get, the more they become hard to maintain those CRUD operations. And there's need to revisit the architecture, and there's need to see ways into which they can be made better. So you'll see that in CQRS, what we're trying to do is we're trying to segregate them into read. So the read side performs many varieties of queries. The write side could have logic, which could be validation, could be base logic. It becomes complex. So when you split them, it becomes easier to maintain edge. So that's the whole idea of CQRS. And then we've got the reads, we've got the writes. So in a context of CQRS, the reads are called queries, the writes are called commands, or you could call them steps. So we've got commands, we've got queries. Hence the CQ there should make sense. All right. So how do we implement this pattern? So we use what we call the mediator pattern. All right. So we're trying to simplify how objects will talk to each other. We don't want the objects to talk to each other directly. You want to have a mediator that will be responsible for coordinating this object communication. So what a service would send a message to the mediator, and it will resolve what that service needs, and it will invoke whatever that service needs. So there's also a level of loosely coupling here, because the objects are not tied to objects. There's a mediator in between. So that's the general logic. So what a mediator does is it just accepts a request, it handles that request, and it will give back a response. All right, so enough of the theory here. Let's get to code and really see how we can actually implement the CQRS in an actual API. Okay, so let's go to create project. So I have added a companion txt file which you could use for the steps, so that you can go through it on your own and you won't really have problems. So what do we need? First of all, we need to create an API project, right? So we're going to create a movie management. All right, so call that.api. This should be CQRS demo. All right, click next. We're using .NET 6, leave everything as it is, the defaults, and create your project. All right, that's step number 1. So our API is there. And we have to create a class library. We just want to segregate this logic of the CRUD part into its very own project, so that we shouldn't really mix it with the API, right? So just separating concerns here, nothing serious. All right, so I want you to, so we're going to call it, okay, I want you to right click on the solution, add new project, and you select the class library. Click next. I want to call it movie management. The library. Just be consistent, because I've done .api.library. Just be consistent. Let's create that. And we're going to use .NET 6 as well. I usually delete this class. And in the API also there is that control that comes with it. You could remove that. Let's keep it clean and simple. Remove the weather focus class as well. Clean and simple. Okay. So what do we need? We need a folder of data, which will now focus on the data aspect of it. So we're not going to use an actual database in this tutorial because we're just trying to learn how to implement CQRS. You could do that at your own free time, or else you could also check in the description. There's a lot of entry framework on this channel that could also help you. So create a folder called data, and other folder called models. All right, so create a folder called models, and we're gonna have one model, and we're gonna call it a movie model. Okay, keeping it at the bare minimum, so we focus on what we're doing. So class, let's call it movie model, and it's gonna have a bare minimum ID, name, and the cost. Okay, let's keep it at a minimum. Make that public. You keep it internal. It's only gonna focus in that assembly. So that's nice. All right. In our data folder, we're gonna need to have an iData repository. So this will just be a contract which really just dictates what whatever class implemented should use. So we're gonna have an iData repository, and we're gonna have two methods just to show the command of the query. All right. So, and these are okay. So these are simple. We just want to let's control dot to bring that in. All right. So we want whoever wants to use this interface has to implement get movies and add a movies too. So a get is a query, and add is a command. All right, and then we want to create the actual class, which will now implement. It's going to implement the repository there. So make that public, and we want to implement that, right? And it's going on to copy all that. I'm just going to copy and paste here. Then I'm going to tell you what's going on. Copy that. Bring it here. Sorry about that. Moving model should come in. Control dot. Control dot. It's misbehaving. I don't know why. Right, so we have a list here, which will act like our data store, because we don't want to bring a lot of complexity with entry framework and whatnot. So this list is going to keep our movies. This is the add movie. So we have implemented it here. We're going to add it to the list. Then we've got the get movies. Okay, pretty much simple and basic. You might wonder what we've done here. Usually you would expect to have list mode over there. If you just put new, C#9 knows about that, so it's going to treat that as it's a good shorthand. So don't be surprised once you see that. So this is our data repository class. All right, so from there, what do we need? From there, we need to now bring in, we've thought about the mediator pattern. So we're going to use a mediator package to help us implement that. We're going to use version 9. I think I was checking this morning, it's on version 10, but since I know version 9, and I'm afraid version 10 might have breaking changes, we're going to use version 9. But feel free to try version 10 to see if there's any changes. And if there are, try also to find out what those changes are. It kind of helps. So right click, then go to NuGet Package Manager, Mediator, search for it. Like I said, it's 10, so I'm going to use 9. And install that. Click OK. There we go. So we have it covered. All right. So what's next? All right. So this is just the bare minimum setup. Now let's get into the mediator thing. Now we're in two folders, right? For commands and queries. This makes sense because we want to separate them. You don't have to put folders, but it makes sense. Because we're trying to simplify things here. So you're going to have a folder called queries. And you're going to have a folder called handlers. You might wonder why we have handlers there. So there are queries, there are commands, and there'll be a handler. So a query dictates, a handler handles the actual request, and it resolves, if you remember what we talked about in the theory aspect of this video. All right. So first of all, what you want to get from the data store, you want to get all movies, right? So we're gonna call it get movie list query. Okay. So go to queries, add class, call it get movie list query. So the query there is just for conversion, so that you should know, but it's not a must, but you should put it there for easy identifiability. So I'm going to do something that maybe it's kind of new. I'm going to use a record, which is just a supercharged class in C# 9. So all we're saying is, so iRequest is a mediator interface. Okay. So what it does is it just dictates what would be the return type. It's going to return a list of movies. All right. That's the query. And I've used C# 9. This is a record, pretty much a class, just supercharged. All right. So this will get us a list of models. Right. So after you've done that, then you need to have a handler. So what's the conversion for a handler? We're going to call it get movie list handler. This is get movie list query, get movie list handler. So you can see the conversion there for easy following. Not a must, but I highly recommend you follow this pattern. So let's get a class, movie handler, make the public. All right, now movie handler is going to inherit from the iRequest handler interface under the mediator. So what does it take? Models, interface. So what does it take? It takes in your command or query, which in this case is the get movie list, which we've just done. And the other output is what you want to give you. And by default, it has a handle function, which takes in the request which comes from your class and a cancellation token in case you're trying to check if things haven't done the way you want it, then you want to cancel them. All right, that's another topic on its own. So that you've got the handle. All right, but for you to return this, you need to have to find a way to get them. So these ones are in the data repository, right here. So it means we need to. And my bad, I'm gonna move the movie handler to handlers. It's in if I can, it's in the wrong folder. It's supposed to be in handlers, and I seem not to move. I'm trying to move it. I wonder why. Can I move it? Can I drag and drop it? Yeah, it's possible. All right, much better. Let's put it in a handlers namespace. Much better. Oh, yep. Okay, perfect. So we want it to return a list, but where do you get it? You get it from the iData repository. And by the rules of dependency injection, we have to inject a dependency, which is the iHandler, the iData repository. So let's inject that through the constructor. Let's get movie handler. So let's bring that in. All right. So this will give us access to that. And all we have to do now is just return the task. Okay, very straightforward. And so we're going to use the get movies, which is here. This one. All right, perfect. So we've handled it. So when we call, so this handler, if it's given that, it's going to return that. All right. So there we are. All right. Now, if you follow my tutorials, you notice that, or most tutorials, you see that there's a dependency injection container in the API, which has to be injected with stuff that you need to do this with. So we're going to do that in the API. Although we could bring the dependency injection within this library and just call it in the API. But I have a video, it's going to be in the description. I don't want to confuse you with that. So we're going to use the normal way. So you just grasp this context. So I want you to go to the API, open the program.cs class, and we are going to have to, okay, first of all, we need to bring in, since Mediator is a dependency, and we have to register it in the dependency injection container, we have to install a NuGet package. So under the API, again, remember we're using 9. So you're going to have to install that, and then install it. And then we're going to have to register the as well. So here we are. First of all, you want to register the interface over here, this tool. So where do we put them? Make sure you put them above aptitude, otherwise it's not going to work. You're going to be, all right, so control dot. I'm going to add a reference to that. And I'm going to have to register the AutoMapper. I mean, the add mediator. I should probably do an AutoMapper video one of these days. All right, so we have, okay, let's bring it in, control dot. There we go. And now we have to create a controller that's going to handle the front-facing side. So we're going to create a movies controller. So go to the controllers folder, like click that, and controller, make sure it's an API controller, not an MVC controller. It could be empty, it's fine. You're going to call that a movies controller. And pretty much you'd want to inject the mediator because you're going to use it here. So that's very important. You're going to bring it in, and then you're going to inject it via the constructor over there. And let's just create an endpoint. And you see how simple this will be. All you need is to say mediator. Okay, just a minute. All you're saying is mediator.send, and you're giving it your query. Once you give it the query, which is get movie query here, this one, it will resolve on its own which service you want to handle. Now let's test this real quick. Control F5. All right, so our swagger loads. Get, and we try it out, execute. And boom, we get them. Unlike the other videos where we've used the repository pattern, and we've actually coded here, we've used the mediator. So, all right, but we've just done one. So let's explore the others as well. All right, let's explore the others as well. All right, so I'm gonna close that. All right, let's go to our, so now let's say you want to resolve getting by ID, right? So there's something I'm gonna show you, very, 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 very nice. So first of all, if you want to get movie by ID, a specific movie, you have to create its query first. All right, so we're gonna go to the queries folder, and we're going to say add a class, and this class is going to be called get movie by query ID, right? And I'm gonna use a record. And then unlike last time, we need to give an ID, so we find what that ID is. All right. Pardon my dogs. So we are saying we're going to give an ID. It's going to return a movie model, right? So if you've got a query, the next thing you need to have is a handler if you got that correct. So let's get movie by ID handler. All right, so let's copy that. And I'm going to go to the handler, add a new class. Okay. And it's going to get from the I request handler, which has the handle method. Let's bring in all of those. Okay, so we're saying the handle method now. Now, there are two ways you could do this. The first way is what we did with the get movies list handle, where we put out a repository, right? So you could do this, inject it, and take from there. But I want to show you another way which you can do it, though I don't recommend, but I just want to show you various ways you could do it. You could do something clever here, and you could say, instead of me injecting a repository, I'm going to inject the mediator, which I've used already, and so let me show you. So we're saying, what if you brought in, instead of injecting a repository, you're going to inject an iMediator. And let me just show you in a minute. Then, what you're going to do is, the same way we did in the, what do we need here? Just copy all of it in the handle method. Oops. It appears we've lost all the source code. Just kidding. Yeah. See that error? I'm seeing problem. So we're saying the same way you did it in the controller, you said .send and it resolved, right? And this one is giving you a list of movies. Now we're saying, what if we did the same here and said, Mediator, just resolve for us, give us all the movies. And when you give us all the movies, we're going to search through it via our ID, which comes from the request. You see, smart. Of course, this could end up being nows, but I'm not doing error handling here. I'm just doing how you could actually implement. So this is another sneaky way to do it. You know, you've used the mediator using an already existing, but the problem is this creates a dependency. Once you change the other one, this might also break. But I'm just showing you the other ways you could do it for something that's really static. Now, all you have to do is go to your controller and add that endpoint. Okay. And it's just a thin client. It's thin. You can see there isn't a lot of logic here. That's why we need the mediator. So we're saying this have an ID, and we want to get query movie ID, and just like the way we did with the list, it's going to resolve. Now let's press Control F5 and see what's going to happen here. All right. So there are two movies, ID 1 and 2, and if I do ID number 2, boom, it gets. All right. So we've done two queries. Let's just do one command and wrap this video up before it becomes painfully long, and we might even lose the meaning of it. So what's next? We want to add a movie now. So we need a command. It's going to be an add movie command. All right. So we're going to go. So we didn't create a command folder. Let's create a commands folder. Add a folder called commands. Commands. All right. And let's add the add movie command so that we pray with that. All right. Add command, and we want to use a record as well. And we have to pass it a movie model for it to add. That makes sense. All right. Forgot to close that. All right. Then from a command, you need a handler. So it'll be an add movie handler. If you're guessing it, congratulations. No guessing, but if you're thinking it through, and congrats, you're getting the hang of it. It's not really hard. The only drawback is the setup can be tedious, but the benefits are just huge for a big problem. All right, so add movie handler. And what are we doing here? So let's just bring those bad boys in. Mediator and command get us the movie. Yep. So we're saying we're going to use that add command class, and we're going to turn a movie model. And in a handle method, we need to, so for us to add it, we need the data repository injection. That should make sense by now. And you're going to come down there, let's bring it in. And for the movie in the data repository, there is this function called add movie. So that should come handy, right? In the handle method. And it should just be one line of code. So there you go. Bring it there. So we're saying from that result, just add the movie. And from here, we're going to the controller and just creating an endpoint. And our endpoint is going to be a post because we're posting to an API. If that's difficult, then check my API course on this channel. All right. And here we are. And let's control F5 and see what we get. So we've seen the tool. Now let's create. I'm going to give it an ID 3. Let's give it 3. I'm going to call it test movie 3. It's going to be $500. Very expensive. And it should return that. And if I do get all movies, then it should come. Perfect. So the whole concept here is to have thin clients. As you can see, the controllers are busy with calling a lot of stuff. It's a thin client, and we have separated our concerns into queries and models, and the handlers now do the actual resolving. So if you've watched this far, I really hope I've given you something new to learn today, and I've really made it simple. If this gives you value, please like, comment, share, subscribe, and this keeps us going. And do have a lovely night.